So how long? How long are the Phillies going to do this? How long are we going to pretend that Jordan Romano is a major league pitcher at this point? The dude is cooked. The dude's been cooked. For the entire season, he's been cooked. Last year with the Blue Jays, you know what he was? He was cooked. At this point, I'd actually say that last year he was cooked. This year he's burnt. And yet, in save situations, we keep throwing him out there, hoping that he is the guy. Thinking that maybe Caleb Cotham just unlocked something, Maybe they worked in a bullpen session and they got it right. Hey, he had 2 outings without giving up a run, so maybe it suddenly clicked. And then he reminds us who he is. Jordan Romano, and I'll call him Jordan Romano because until he, doesn't suck, he doesn't deserve to be called Romano. But Jordan Romano at this point is the girl you dated that continuously cheats on you, and you tell yourself it's going to be different every time, and it's not. You'll go on 2 dates, 3 dates, things are looking good. Hey, maybe you go a month with no incidents, and then all of a sudden you catch her up the street with your hot neighbor who teaches yoga and has a man bun. And you're like, not man bun guy again. That is Jordan Romano. He goes out there, he blows saves. He's blown 3 saves this year. He's 1-4 on the season. His ERA is 7.77. How long are we going to act like, not only how long are we going to act like he's a major league pitcher, how long are we going to put him in save situations? Because I'm tired of it. Now, what you saw on Tuesday night was something you'll probably never see again in your lifetime. Let's be real. A walk-off inside the park home run. Is that Jordan Romano's fault that they lost that way, such a unique way to lose? Some would say no. Look, it's a fluke thing. When the ball left the barrel of the bat, let's be real, you thought it was probably gone. So when you go with that thought process, you go like, yeah, it is his fault. A couple of years ago, the Phillies signed Juris Familia, and ironically, they signed Juris Familia to the same amount of money that they signed Jordan Romano to, and he was terrible. And he was terrible from the get-go. He was terrible until they reached around this time of the season, and the Phillies finally decided we can't do this anymore, and they cut him. At what point are you going to do that? This isn't a cry for help necessarily, this video. It's not like I'm hitting the panic button. The Phillies are still a really good team, and Jordan Romano is not going to keep them from missing the playoffs or making the playoffs. He's not going to be the difference maker. He might be the difference maker in the terms of like the division. When you look at his 1-4 record, you might be able to go like, okay, if Romano could have not blown 3 saves, if he wasn't losing 4 games, maybe. But what this is, though, is a bigger problem. Because the Phillies have an I can't quit you mentality with now Jordan Romano. They have it with Brandon Marsh. Seems like they kind of have it with Max Kepler. Like they have it with too many guys that are clearly not the guy. I mean, the Phillies right now are rolling 3 outfielders, and none of them are major league outfield. Like, Brandon Marsh is a dime a dozen. You can pick him up anytime, and they still don't trust him against lefties. Max Kepler's popping off to the media about, I was told I was going to be the everyday left fielder. You're not good. Bro, you're not very good. Okay? I hate to break it to you. You might have been told that, and then you came up here and you're mediocre at best. And then you've got Johan Rojas, and I've talked about it before. Like, I'm the biggest Johan Rojas fan in the world, but they don't trust him against righties. So you're throwing out 3 outfielders every day. And it's just like, all right, we'll throw 2. 1 in center, 1 in left, we'll figure it out. And none of them have taken the job. None of them. But because the Phillies gave up a decent haul for Brandon Marsh, i.e. they gave up Logan O'Hoppe, who's one of the better hitting catchers in the game, although, to be fair, he slowed down the past month and a half. But they gave up Logan O'Hoppe, and I feel like which a lot of GMs do this, they're so dead set on getting it right. They're so convinced that they have gotten it right that they are going to give that person every opportunity. And when you go out there and you let Jeff Hoffman walk, and you sign Jordan Romano to replace him, you're convinced that that was a good move. So you're willing to give Jordan Romano every opportunity to prove you right. It's ego. That's all it is. Howie Roseman had it for a while, and he dropped it, and it's probably the biggest change in Howie Roseman that you've seen, where, like, he will cut bait. He will go, like, look, this didn't work. All right? I got it wrong. I'll move on. And credit to him for doing it, because it is hard to do. You're so convinced that you got it right, and you think to yourself as a general manager, like, this is going to look really bad on me if we cut bait, and people are going to come for me in my head because I'm the one who made the signing, or I'm the one who made the draft pick or the trade or whatever, but it didn't work out. And no, like, I'm convinced that it will work out, and it's a detriment to your organization, and that's what's happening right now. Dave Dombrowski failing to go out and get a bullpen arm now. Dave Dombrowski failing to sign a competent bullpen arm in the offseason is a detriment to the team. The team is a really, really, really good baseball team. And I think it's easy to forget you lose track of that, especially when they go on a losing streak, which, they dominated the Giants, but on Wednesday. But you fail to remember a lot of times, like, good teams will go in losing streaks. It's not the end of the world. But you can't sit there and have a team where your starting pitching is that good and your bullpen is kind of the opposite. Where you reach the bullpen and you go, like, it is helter-skelter. You don't know what you're getting. They have some nice pieces. Like, Tanner Banks has been pretty good as a left-handed reliever. Pleasant surprise. But he's the only lefty out of the bullpen. Nobody wants to see Max Lazar. Matt Strahm hasn't been his all-star self from last season, but he's been solid. Orion Kerkering's got it right, albeit for, the game on, what was that, Monday, where, like, Phil Cuzzy couldn't read the strike zone. But still, Orion Kerkering was hitting dudes. So they have some people, but they need something else. But here's the other problem. The Phillies will go out there, and they will address this. And they'll address it at the deadline. Like, they will address it July 31st. That has been Dave Dombrowski's modus operandi. Like, that's what he does. He doesn't set the market. He waits till the last second. Because when you wait till the last second, all of a sudden the price goes from the number 4 ranked prospect to the number 7 ranked prospect. And that's fine. But I have no faith in the Phillies being able to get a bullpen arm and using him correctly. Whoever it is. Because when you look at the history of Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski, they have gotten closers before, and they have failed to use them correctly. Meaning, you trade for Carlos Estevez, you don't initially immediately make him your 9th inning guy, your closer. He's an all-star closer for the Angels, but what do the Phillies do? We're going to pitch out of the 8th. We're going to have you pitch the 9th today and the 7th tomorrow. And then the 9th and the 6th. And then they pitch them all around. And in baseball especially, players are such creatures of habit that fucks with them. That fucks with their head. And if you don't believe me, like, I'm going off Ricky Bottalico, former all-star for the Phillies, who said, like, I needed to know where I was pitching. And a lot of players are like that. A lot of players want to know every day, like, where they're playing. And that's one of the reasons why Max Kepler popped off, because he didn't know. And he still doesn't know if he's playing every day. So players want to be creatures of habit. And when you take a guy and you trade for a closer, and then you don't make him the closer, and you still continue to do this bullshit closer by committee role, it's the equivalent of, like, the dude in the suburbs who should not have a gun. He should not have a license to carry because he has no idea how to use it. I think we all know one of those guys where you go, like, hey, man, if push comes to shove and somebody comes in your house, it's not ending well. You're going to be sitting... That's what the Phillies do. Like, they have the license to carry. I don't have any faith that they know how to use it. So they're going to go out there, and they're going to give up a decent prospect, and they're going to get an all-star closer, sure. And we're going to sit there and go, okay, bullpen solidified. You got your closer. And then we're going to see him come out there in the 8th inning because of metrics and splits and all of that. But at the end of the day, let's circle back here because I kind of got off the rails. How long are we going to continue to pretend that Jordan Romano is a major league pitcher? How long are you going to sit there and throw him out in meaningful baseball games to finish a game and act like you have a modicum of faith in him? Because there isn't a Phillies fan out there that sees Jordan Romano come in and go, all right, I can turn this game off. I feel good right now. No, not it. Hey, this is the part where you guys hit the buttons. You know what the buttons are. Subscribe is the most important one. I'd appreciate that. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Try to be nice in the comment section because I'm baby shit soft. But hey, go Phillies. So let me get on my tinfoil hat for a second. Guerschon Yabusele is no longer a Philadelphia 76er. He's not a Sixer. He's moved on. He's going to the Knicks. It's unfortunate because he's going to one of the best teams in the East and a team that you're expecting to be contending for the Eastern Conference. And you expect the Sixers to be right there. At least I do. Like, I think the Sixers are a really good team, and maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here, but I think they had a really, really down year. I think everything kind of, that could go wrong went wrong for them. And I think they're going to be much, 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 much better next year. But their depth took a hit when you lose Yabo. And he signs with a Knicks team. And it's like, damn, that sucks. Okay, all right, well, we'll see what happens there. But then something interesting comes out. When he was asked about the offer from the Sixers, he said, yeah, there's no hard feelings or anything, but their offer was a little disrespectful. Something to that effect. I'm not going to look it up, so hit thumbs down for that, for me just being lazy. It's late here in Roxborough. But it was basically the equivalent of, like, their offer really wasn't what we were looking for. And it was like, damn, okay. That happens. There's plenty of instances where teams will lowball a guy just so they can say, we made him an offer. And now the team isn't looked at as the bad guy. The players looked at as the bad guy. I remember Mark Teixeira talking about that with the Orioles, that he was from Baltimore. And Andy McPhail, former Philly loser, he basically called him up and said, look, we're going to make you an offer, and it's not going to be a good one, so that we can say we made you an offer. And then he was looked at as the bad guy by Baltimore Orioles fans. It's like, I can't believe you didn't want to come home. And it's like, that offer wasn't even close. It wasn't a real offer. So there are instances of organizations doing this. They want to save face, and they want to say, hey, we made him an offer. And then it ends up being a lowball offer that's not a real offer. But then you looked at what Yabu signed for, and it's slightly above the mid-level exemption. And it's like, how low was the Sixers offer? If all you got from the Knicks was slightly above the mid-level, how low could the Sixers offer have really been? So, as I said, let me put on that tinfoil hat. Tinfoil is expensive, so I'm not making a hat right now. All right? Can't afford it. That's why we need subscribers. But when you put on a tinfoil hat, just envision one right there. I wonder how much of this is agent-driven. I wonder how much of this is his agent wanting to get him to a bigger market in the Knicks. Because the reality is, the NBA is a big market league. The NFL is market proof. Doesn't really matter what city you're in, you can be a star in the NFL. Kansas City is not exactly the hotbed when it comes to markets. And yet, you've got Travis Kelce, you've got Patrick Mahomes, like, they're a good team. And when good teams are good and they have good players, the NFL is like marketless proof. Whereas the NBA, it's like these players want to get to big markets. And I'm sure every Sixers fan, when the team drafted Ben Simmons, had the thought in our heads of like, how long before he asked for a trade to LA? And ironically, he became a Clipper last year, and it's a very forgettable experience. So when you look at the NBA and you look at agents controlling things, and you look at Yabu's comments about the lowball offer, the reality is Daryl Morey's not calling up Yabu and saying, hey man, this is what we're offering. He's calling up his agent, which means that the offer is getting relayed to him by his agent. The offer of what the Sixers are giving is relayed. It's not given directly to the player. So when you look at that factor, I just wonder how much of this, and this is pure speculation, this is late night conspiracy theory stuff, but I wonder how much of it is the agent sitting there going, okay, we got him back in the NBA, and we got him on a team where he carved out a role for himself, but the team is a little bit of a shit show. I'm drinking the Sixers Kool-Aid, but the Sixers are a little bit of a shit show. Whereas the Knicks have been in the Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks went from the second round to the Eastern Conference Finals. They got a new coach. It's a big market. It's New York. They are the team. It's not like they're the Nets. They're their team. If he balls out for the Knicks in the Mecca, guy's going to get paid. And who else gets paid? The agent gets paid. I love Philadelphia. I will die for this city. I will defend the city at all costs. But Philadelphia is not the market that New York is, and especially in the NBA. It's like LA, New York, Miami, that is it. Those are the markets. There's 3 markets in the NBA. Those are it. And I just wonder how much of this is maybe the Sixers offer wasn't bad. Maybe the Sixers gave an offer that was similar or maybe even a little bit better than the Knicks, but this is agent driven. And the agent sat there and said, no, we'll take a little bit of a hit. Like, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I don't even know what the offer was, but let's say, hypothetically speaking, the Sixers offered $6 million, and the agent goes, yeah, you know what? I'd rather have him sign for 5.5, take a $500,000 hit, and be in New York, be on primetime TV way more often, and be in that system, whatever that system is with Mike Brown, but be in that system over in Philadelphia, where because of where the team was, they're probably not going to be on many primetime games. And, well, it's like I don't want to use that phrase, the long-term game frame, but it's I'm going to take one step back to take 5 steps forward. Because if he balls out for the Knicks, look out. So it's just a conspiracy theory on my part. I was very surprised when I initially saw the quote from Yabu. I thought, okay, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I would love to have him back, but if they gave a low ball offer, I get it. And then when you see what he signed for, and you're like, how low could it be? You signed for just over the mid-level. So they offered you the mid-level? But even then. So it's just complete conspiracy on my part. I have no inside information on this. Just kind of a random thought that I had of like, maybe this isn't necessarily on the up and up. Maybe this is agent driven. Now's the part where I ask you guys to hit the button. Subscribe's the most important one. You guys know where that is, obviously, and you know where the rest of the buttons are. Let me know if you agree, though, if you actually believe that the Sixers lowballed them, or if it smells fishy to you too, because it smells very, very fishy to me. And I'm going to go now and watch Netflix. Go Sixers. The MLB Trade Deadline is less than a month away, and I want to look at 3 Phillies prospects that I am not trading at the deadline. Now, it is important to preface this with saying, I am somebody that falls in love with prospects. I thought that Michael Taylor was going to be the 5-tool stud outfielder. I thought Jonathan Singleton was going to be the next Ryan Howard. I thought Jared Cosart was going to be, at the very minimum, a number 3. The list goes on and on and on. I have fallen into the hole that a lot of people that follow the minor leagues fall into, which is you just fall in love with these guys and you convince yourself that they're probably more than they end up being. And a lot of times you end up being wrong, which is fine. So while I personally would not trade these 3 players, if they are traded, there's a better chance than not that they don't end up hitting, because that's just the reality of baseball. I mean, it's a sport of failure, and that trickles down to the minor leagues. And a quick look at any futures game roster will tell you that from the past. I mean, I looked at the 2015 roster. It is gross. By the way, features former Phillies prospects Jake Thompson and Jorge Alfaro, to give you an example of that. But because the trade deadline is approaching, I'm going to list the 3 guys that personally I'm not moving. And it's for various reasons, and it might not be who you think. Now, the first one is going to be the obvious one. It's going to be Andrew Painter. Andrew Painter is 22 years old. At 20 years old, he was vying for a rotation spot coming into spring training until his elbow fell off. Now, they repaired that elbow, and he still missed 2 years. And even though he was elected to the Futures game this year, he's not going to pitch because, after all, we got to wrap him in bubble wrap. It's been one of the things that I've been pounding the table against all year long is the Phillies' handling of Andrew Painter. Instead of letting this kid just pitch, no. We have to act like he had the surgery yesterday instead of the reality he had the surgery 2 years ago. But he is 22 years old. He is at AAA. He's not thriving at AAA. He's fine, and he's doing pretty damn well if you consider the fact that he is just 22. But I think when you factor in what fans were expecting out of Andrew Painter and what they've gotten out of Andrew Painter at AAA, he's not forcing the Phillies' hand to call for a promotion. Now, I know that Jim Salisbury from PHLY wrote an article pondering the question of, do the Phillies call him up? McAble just had the worst start of his career. His calling card of struggles, which is walks, reared its ugly head the other night when he couldn't even get through 3 innings. He was just walking everybody. So do the Phillies send McAble down, bring Andrew Painter up, and just see what he's got
I wouldn't, because I want the kid to force the Phillies' hand. I want the kid to go out there and pitch so well that the Phillies don't have a choice. And that's basically what Mick Abel did. Mick Abel, I don't think, was the number one pitcher to get called up when the season started if you looked at the AAA roster. And hell, even if you looked at the organization, I don't think the Phillies were like, if anyone goes down, we're calling up Mick Abel. Because you got to remember, the kid had a 6.5 ERA the previous year, but he forced their hand. And that's what I want from Andrew Painter. He's not having the best year, but the stuff is there. When you factor in that Zach Wheeler is set to retire when his contract expires in 2027, well, at that point, Andrew Painter would be 25 years old. You're going to want somebody to slip into that spot of ace. It's certainly not going to be Aaron Nola, I don't think. Once again, I hope I'm wrong. I've railed against that guy all season because that contract's terrible. But the other thing you have to factor in is the Phillies, they're pretty much good on pitchers for next season. I mean, they've got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus, they're all locked up. Jesus Luzardo is under team control, and if you're really desperate, Taijuan Walker has another year left on his contract at $18 million. So your rotation theoretically could be set. You're expecting, though, Andrew Painter to come in spring training and vie for that fifth starter spot. So when you factor all that in, when you factor the makeup of this kid, the stuff, what the scouts see, the fact that the returns from the Arizona Fall League were really, really positive, I'm not trading him. And I don't think a lot of Phillies fans are trading him, except for Ohtani. Now, when I'm looking at another player, and I think that this is where the controversy might start, and this is where people might hit me with like an LOL clown, I'm not trading Justin Crawford. I'm not doing it. 3 out of the past 4 trade deadlines, the Phillies have looked for an outfielder. I mean, just let that sink in. 3 out of the past 4. This is going to be another year where they're once again looking for an outfielder because they have had the Austin Hayes, Brandon Marshes, Max Kepler, Johan Rojas's, Corey Dickerson's of the world. Like, they've had those guys that you'll convince yourself, hey, I mean, this guy could be it, and then they're not. Now, I am a bigger Johan Rojas fan than most, but the fact is, the Phillies do not trust him against righties. Just like the Phillies really don't trust Brandon Marsh, even though he's like 28 against lefties. They don't trust Johan Rojas against righties. I would like to see Johan Rojas with a full season of just sink or swim. They're never going to give it to him. On the flip side, if you end up trading Justin Crawford, I don't know where you go next season because you're going to need Justin Crawford next season. I mean, people are vying for Justin Crawford now, and the reason why they're doing it is because this kid is 21 years old, 21, I think, and he's in AAA. Dominating. I'm not trading him. Now, when I looked at Justin Crawford, I think the most impressive thing is twofold. One is the fact that last year he ends the season by reaching AA Reading. He comes into spring training. He performs so well that the Phillies go, hey, we're actually going to not send you back to AA. We're going to send you to AAA. And he thrives at AAA. Like, if Justin Crawford had hit 250 with an OBP of 330, I think a lot of Phillies fans would be okay with that because you go, well, look, he's young for the International League. He's super young. It's his first taste of the International League. He's facing some pitchers that have major league experience. Like, I'm okay with Justin Crawford hitting 250 and 330 because next year, he'll acclimate more. He'll be ready for it, and then boom. No, he's not hitting 330. He's not hitting 250. He's hitting 330. His OBP is 4. This guy is a prototypical leadoff hitter. He gets on base a ton. Lot of contact. Oh, and by the way, he's on pace to steal 40 bases again for the 3rd straight season at 21. Now, it's not fair to compare him to Carl Crawford, his dad, because you have the genetic thing too. I mean, you can literally look at like who this guy will be. His dad at the age of 21 was in his first full season of Major League Baseball. But when you look at Carl Crawford, the dude was a 4-time All-Star and was a stud for the Devil Rays. Stud. So when I look at Justin Crawford, I look at a kid that next season should be able to take either center or left. You slot him into the back of the lineup, and then you see if he can force his way to the top because they don't really need a leadoff hitter right now, but they will, maybe in a year or two. So I'm not trading Justin Crawford. He's their best outfield prospect right now. If you really want to trade an outfield prospect, I mean, you could trade Dante Nori, last year's first-round pick, but I'm not trading Justin Crawford. I want Justin Crawford in a Phillies uniform. I wanted it yesterday. They don't really need to rush him, though, because it's not like the team is struggling. They will address outfield, as I said, again at the trade deadline. But yeah, I'm not trading Justin Crawford. And the third guy that I'm not trading, it's catching prospect Eduardo Artai. This one's more organizational based, though, because Eduardo Artai is an 18-year-old playing at single A Clearwater and performing pretty well. But the most impressive thing about Eduardo Artai, I mean, you look at his slash line, it's not all that impressive. His power numbers are impressive. He's got 17 doubles, he's got 10 home runs as an 18-year-old. Also, he is the 7th ranked prospect in all of baseball when it comes to catchers. I think he's their 4th ranked prospect in their system. Again, though, it doesn't really mean much. Every year, that 100 list is riddled with players that never amount to anything. But when you look at the organizational need right now, catcher is kind of it. You've got JT Realmuto entering the last year of his contract. Now, Eduardo Artai is not ready to slide into JT's spot. But you see this year how much this organization depends on JT Realmuto with the fact that Rafael Marchand can barely get on the field. He can barely get on the field. You would think that he would be your heir apparent right now, at least, to JT Realmuto. He's a young catcher, and they're still throwing out JT 4 every 5 days. I think a realistic situation is they re-sign JT Realmuto to a 2 to 3 year contract. They like the way he handles the pitching staff. And then when he finally is ready to retire right off into the sunset, at that point, you hope that Eduardo Artai's development would have pushed him so that he is the heir apparent. But they also have other prospects at catcher that they can trade, mainly Aurelios Ferrebis, and I'm probably butchering that name. He's 19. He just got promoted to Clearwater. The problem is he's literally behind Eduardo Artai. He's literally his backup. So while he's a decent prospect, he's blocked. He's blocked by the better guy that I'm not trading. Now, Eduardo Artai could amount to the next Jorge Alfaro. The Phillies could go out there and they could draft a catcher in round 1, and he could be a college catcher, and he could be an advanced bat, and you throw him in, high A Jersey Shore, and you hope that he reaches Double A by the end of the season, and boom, next thing you know, next season he's pushing JT. Who knows? But right now, as it stands, I'm not trading Eduardo Artai. I'm not trading an 18-year-old catcher who has 27 extra base hits in A ball. I'm not doing it. Could the wheels fall off? Absolutely. Could I look back on this in a year and laugh at my stupidity? Of course. But those are the 3 guys I am not trading at the deadline. It is Andrew Painter, Justin Crawford, Eduardo Artai. Consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is cool. Cool kids are doing it. Thumbs down, thumbs up, whatever. You guys know where the buttons are. Try to be nice in the comment section. All right. That's all I got. Go Phillies.
All right, since I talked about a couple prospects that I would not trade at the deadline, let's talk about some that I do not expect to be here post-deadline. These are the guys I think are most likely to be dealt in a move that would acquire some major league talent, albeit an outfielder or relief help. We all know what the Phillies are looking for. But these are the guys that I think will be on the move, and they're most likely to be dealt by the Phillies. So if you've gotten attached to them, I want it, and I'll explain why. And the first one, and we're just going in order of Major League Baseball's top 30 prospects here, but the first one is number 5. He is now back in the top 100. I think he is number, 87, 88. I probably should know this, so hit thumbs down for that. But it is Mick Abel. I do not expect Mick Abel to be here on August 1st. Mick Abel last season was one of the worst pitchers in the entire International League. The Phillies stuck with him the entire season in the International League. They never moved him to the bullpen. His ERA was well over 6. I mean, I think it was 6.66. All right, it wasn't that. I know that because that would pop out, 666. But it was really, really bad. And something clicked this year. He did a complete 180, to his credit. He forced the Phillies to call him up when they needed an arm when Aaron Nola went down. And Mick Abel, we all remember the debut, right? 6 innings, 9 Ks, outduels Paul Skeens, looks incredible. And then after that, it was up and down, and it was capped off by a really, really rough outing against San Diego Padres where he couldn't make it out of the second inning. And his big bugaboo in his entire career has been walks, and it reared its ugly head in that game. He was sent back down to AAA, and mainly because the Phillies don't really need a fifth starter until after the All-Star break. So it's kind of up and down who will be called back up. Will it be Mick Abel? Will it be Andrew Painter? I would call back up Mick Abel if they need somebody. But at the end of the day, I think July 31st, he will be dealt. Last year, I thought he'd be dealt. Full transparency. I thought he would be dealt in a package that was like Mick Abel and a couple of other guys. But Mick Abel wouldn't be the main piece of the deal. Mick Abel would kind of be a throwing guy when you looked at like a reclamation project because of the fact that he was having such a bad season at AAA. And baseball is such a mental game where you wondered last season, because he's having such a rough year, has he hit a wall? Is this what's likely to come? Is it a deer in the headlights thing? Confidence? Like what? But when you look at what he's done this season in AAA, he went from being one of the worst pitchers to one of the best pitchers in the International League. I mean, he is crushing it right now for the Iron Pigs. Then he comes up and he has that start against Paul Skeens, and now you're starting to think, okay, maybe instead of being kind of a reclamation project in a package that would, involve a proven talent, maybe now Mick Abel is the guy. Maybe he is the main piece that would acquire that outfielder. Maybe he's the main piece that would acquire that arm that you desperately need out of the bullpen, because teams are going to look at him and they're going to be very, very enticed by what they saw. He's still 24 years old. He's still very young. But the main reason why I think Mick Abel will not be here is there is no room for him. There's none. When you look past this year, where does Mick Abel fit? Like, look at it. Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Aaron Nola, they're all locked up to long-term deals. Jesus Luzardo is under team control. Taijuan Walker has another year left on his deal, and everybody's expecting Andrew Painter to grab that fifth starter spot if need be. Now, I already said 5. That's Andrew Painter. That's 6 starters. So this is assuming that Taijuan Walker would go back to the bullpen and Andrew Painter would slide in the fifth starter spot. But if Andrew Painter fails to grab it, the Phillies have no problem throwing Taijuan Walker back in the fifth starter spot to begin the year. Because if it's really, really bad, and Andrew Painter never, ever throughout the season turns it on, and he struggles again because he's not having a great year in AAA. He's rusty. He hasn't pitched in 2 years, but they'll just address it at the deadline. They'll just grab a fifth starter if they need be. They'll grab a Michael Lorenzen. So when you look at the rotation moving forward, they don't have room for him. So what do? I mean, personally, I would love it if they moved on from Aaron Nola. I'd love it if they traded and got rid of that contract and they made a wrong right by locking up Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez, we're all assuming the Phillies let him walk for whatever reason, even though he's incredible. I mean, the guy's got a 1.99 ERA this season, and all that dude's done is be pretty clutch for the Phils. But this is all assuming the next season the Phillies let Ranger Suarez walk, and even if they let him walk, they still have 5 to 6 starters who are basically penciled in, 4 of them penned in to your rotation. So Mick Abel doesn't even fit. He doesn't have a spot. And it's not like you want to trade Mick Abel necessarily. Like, I'm sure a lot of people would like to, develop him and see what he can be. But the reality is, if he projects to be a 4 or 5 and he can get you a stud outfielder where you no longer have to look at Max Kepler, you no longer have to see Brandon Marsh out there, okay. I think Mick Abel is the number 1 guy. The number 1 out of everybody in the organization to not be here August 1st. I would be blown away if Mick Abel is still here. I think Mick Abel went from being a reclamation project in a package that would probably include 4 prospects to grab a guy, or maybe 3 or 4, to now it might be 1v1. Mick Abel gets you somebody, and you don't have to give up anything else. And that's the luxury of what the Phillies have done with their system, with taking it from being one of the worst to the best, is you now have a plethora. You have this treasure trove of riches, and you can dish it out. And for those that will be attached to prospects, and Lord only knows I'm one of those people that falls in love with prospects, I will remind everybody out there that the greatest run of the Phillies organization was, 08 to 2011 in that 4-year stretch, and they traded off pretty much every prospect they had, and not many panned out. It's like Travis d'Arnaud panned out, and he was dealt for Roy Halladay. Carlos Carrasco, you could point to and say, okay, he panned out, but I'll remind you he was designated for assignment at one point by the Indians, and that like they had given up on him. They really only called him back up because they were desperate, and then he became Carlos Carrasco. There's one more in there that I'm forgetting that was like, okay, he was okay. But for the most part, they dealt a ton of prospects, and none of them really panned out. So, but he's the one guy that I think absolutely will not be here. The next prospect that I'll talk about is the number 11 ranked prospect in the organization, Gabriel Rincones Jr. He's an outfielder right now for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. He's a former third-round pick, and I think that he is also a lock to get dealt. I think he's a guy that will be really enticing to teams for one reason. When you look at Gabriel Rincones Jr., he's only hitting .218, and he's a third-round pick. He plays outfield. Okay, so on the surface, you just look at average. You look at age, because I think he's like 24. You look at where he's at. He's struggling at the plate in AAA. So what would entice teams by that? It's the .349 on-base percentage. The dude gets on base. He might struggle to get a hit, but his plate discipline is going to entice teams. Because plate discipline is something it's really, really tough to teach. Tough to learn, he's got that. And there'll be some team out there that goes, if we can work with him on his swing and get him more comfortable at the plate, and he raises his average from 218 to, let's say, 240, 245, his on-base percentage is going to be close to 400. It's going to be in the 380s. So if we can do that, then we possibly have a third outfielder that we can plug into a major league lineup. But the big reason why I think Gabriel Rincones Jr. will be dealt is because the organization just has better outfield prospects. You know, when you look at next season, I'm expecting Justin Crawford to grab either center or left. I think a lot of people are. Justin Crawford really doesn't have much to prove anymore at AAA. He's dominated International League pitching. He's better than Gabriel Rincones Jr. Dante Nori, the former first-round pick last year, I'm sure the organization views him as better than Gabriel Rincones Jr. Gabriel Rincones had a really, really good spring training. And because of that, he was put to AAA, much like Justin Crawford. It was like, hey, we're not going to put you back at AA, we'll put you at AAA. And it's been mixed because of the average versus the on-base percentage. But there will be a team out there that looks at him and goes, man, I bet you we can fix him. Much like the Phillies looked at Brandon Marsh and said the same thing. When the Phillies traded for Brandon Marsh, it was, we see something in his swing. We think we can fix him. They couldn't. He's not very good. But there will be some team that goes, yeah, okay, we have an expiring contract for a reliever who's having a really, really good year. Yeah, okay, we'll take Gabriel Rincones Jr. and we'll work with him, and hopefully we get that batting average up, and all of a sudden, you know, he becomes the 8th or 9th guy in your lineup, and you know, we at least got a starter out of him. So Gabriel Rincones Jr., don't expect him to be here. Number 11 ranked prospect in the system. Yeah, I think he's probably out. The next guy we'll talk about is the ace of the Reading Fightin' Phils, the number 12 ranked prospect in the system, Gene Cabrera. Take everything I said for the reasons of why Mick Abel will get traded, and Gene Cabrera's the same reason. I mean, there's a log jam of pitchers. They don't really need him. He's having a really, really good year in Reading. He's improved every single month. You know, I think in April his ERA was around 4, and in May it was like 3.7, and then in June he had his best month. And I actually wrote a story for all PHLY about, you know, the top 5 prospects in the month of June, and he was one of them because he had a really, really good month. And he did so, mind you, at First Energy Stadium in Reading, which is a bandbox. It's a hitter-friendly park. But when you look at the organization, they don't need him. And again, it's the luxury of having that much pitching and that much pitching locked up where you can deal a Gene Cabrera and not even think twice about it. Okay, fine. Yeah, all right. Here, we'll take your closer. You get Gene Cabrera. You get a starter, and we'll take your reliever that might have a year left on his contract, or he's an all-star this year, whatever. But Gene Cabrera, pretty much the same reason why I don't think McAble here is Gene Cabrera. The only difference is McAble's a AAA with some Major League Baseball experience, so I think he gets you a better prospect or a better player. Gene Cabrera, I'm looking at probably he's going to get you a bullpen arm, but a very good bullpen arm. But I think teams could do worse than Gene Cabrera because I think Gene Cabrera is a Major League pitcher eventually. He's just in a situation where the organization doesn't really have a spot for him. They're better prospects, you know, and their organization's locked up. So we'll just move on from those guys, and we will look at another guy who is currently on the major league roster, and that's Otto Kemp. And Otto Kemp has been a great story. Like, undrafted free agent, signs with the organization. And while Mick Abel has been arguably the best pitcher in the International League, you can make a case that Otto Kemp was the best hitter in the International League. He forced his way to the majors. He forced his way for the organization to go, like, we got to put this guy on the roster. And you love that. Like, you love when players are playing so well that they don't get called up because of hype or name. And let's be real, if Andrew Painter was called up right now, it'd be because of, the hype and all of that. But when Otto Kemp was called up, it was completely earned. I've said it before, I think Otto Kemp is a big reason why the Phillies let go of Cody Clemens. They basically played the same role. They were a utility guy, a super utility guy that could play all around. But I think the organization looked at it like, well, Cody Clemens is out of options. If we put him at AAA, he's going to get claimed. So if we designate him for assignment, he's going to get claimed. We might as well just trade him because we got this Otto Kemp guy. He's cheaper. He's younger. And he's performed pretty well. But where do you play him? Where does he go? Because when you look at Otto Kemp, he played second base, shortstop, and third base in AAA. And it was mainly just second and short. And you look at the Major League roster, and, like, that's set. Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, they're not going anywhere. Third base, I mean, Alec Boehm's been in trade conversations last offseason, but you could do worse than Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm's a pretty good baseball player. Comes up clutch in terms of, like, RBI situations. Like, I don't want to move on from Alec Boehm. And he's improved on his defense. So I think if you moved Alec Boehm for Otto Kemp, I think that's a downgrade. They've tried him at first base, but first base is locked up. You've got some Bryce guy there. And then they've tried him in the outfield. So they're kind of trying to move him around and find a spot for him and maybe make him that Whit Merrifield type when Whit Merrifield was with the Royals and the Blue Jays and he was kind of that super utility guy. Phillies tried to do that, obviously, with Scott Kingery. It didn't work out. I don't think they try to do that very long with Otto Kemp because I think a team will look at Otto Kemp and go, we see him as our major league second baseman. We see him as our major league shortstop. And I think Otto Kemp could get you a lot because, while the story's great, the talent is clearly there. The dude had a great season last year, had a great Arizona Fall League, had a monster season in AAA this year, and is not looked out of place in the major league level. I think Alec Boehm can get you a decent chunk at the trade deadline. Or Otto Kemp, Alec Boehm, jeez. Hit thumbs down for that. I don't know ball. But I think Otto Kemp could absolutely get you a decent haul at the trade deadline. I think some team will look at him and go, yeah, we could do a hell of a lot worse than a guy like Otto Kemp. I mean, when the Phillies traded for Joe Blanton, they traded their number 2 prospect in Adrian Cardenas because it was the same thing. He played second and short. They weren't moving him to third base. Well, second and short was occupied by some Jimmy guy and the Chase fella. Like, there's no room for Otto Kemp. So unless you're going to keep him here to be a super utility guy, and maybe they do that. Hey, like, he's not a lock to get traded. Maybe they look at him as the replacement for Edmundo Sosa, whose contract is up next season, and it's going to be interesting to see how much money he gets. Does Edmundo Sosa get a starting role somewhere? Does he get offered a starting role? And if so, then you keep Otto Kemp. If you think that the future is that Edmundo Sosa is not on your team, yeah, maybe you keep Otto Kemp, and Otto Kemp can move all over the diamond and spell some guys from here and there, so the workload isn't as much. Maybe, but I do think the Phillies will get calls on Otto Kemp. I think when the Phillies make calls at the deadline, teams are going to go, okay, yeah, we'll give you this, give us Otto Kemp. So those are the 4 that I think will get the most traction at the deadline, with some, I think, locks to get traded. I mentioned Mick Abel being, I think, the biggest lock. Another guy that I think could possibly get dealt is Seth Johnson, former second-round pick, former top 100 prospect. Came up last year. He was involved in the Gregory Soto trade from the Orioles, so he's with the second organization at this point. Came up last year in a spot start, didn't pitch well. Phillies moved him to relief. I think there's a possibility that some team will want him. They'll say, no, we don't really see him as a reliever. We still think we can get something out of him as a starter. The stuff is still there. The projection is still there. He just hasn't quite put it together at the AAA level. He's had a rough go of it this year. I think he could be on the move. Michael Mercado, same thing. He's had a cup of coffee in the major leagues. Hasn't really latched on. There might be some team that goes, we like his size. We like his makeup. We'll give him a shot at being a a starter in our organization, whereas the Phillies have moved him to the bullpen. So those are the guys I think are the most likely to be dealt at the deadline. Hopefully you didn't get attached to them too much, and we will rehash this. We'll look back on it after the deadline, and we'll either laugh at how stupid I am, or I don't know, I'm not one to do a victory lap. So I'm not going to, if I was right on these, I'll just do a quick mention. I'm not going to sit there and go like, oh, hey, look at me. Yeah, those people kind of suck. But now's the part of the video where you guys hit buttons. Subscribe's important. I need subscribers, folks. I don't like twerking on the pole for free. You can hit thumbs down or hit thumbs up. That's up to you. But subscribe, please. And go Phillies.